Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Pranic Healing Podcast. On this episode, we are going to talk about living an authentic life, insights and inspirations from Josue Marbach. So, Josue is a pranic healer and arhatic yoga practitioner who owns his own mobile business that offers convenient at home vehicle services. He's passionate about personal development and aspires to share his insights and teachings with people around the world. Please welcome Josue.
Hi.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Josue, for being on today. It's kind of so interesting how we got connected, right? I think I posted a more of a video personal diary vlog entry, and you gave me such a insightful comment that kind of inspired this podcast. So I'm really excited because living authentically, right, with awareness is something that not only I've been trying to do, but I feel like so many people are trying to do. And I think in the title of my video, I was like, oh, I'm turning 30, but I'm still feeling lost. What's going on? I should have everything figured out now. And yeah, you just shared some amazing things with me. And I really want to take the opportunity for the audience in the podcast to kind of understand your story, and maybe those insights can help them. Oh, sweet. Just for all of us that kind of, you know, are learning more about you, can you basically describe simply, how you got into pranic healing, but also the story before pranic healing, before you knew about energy and consciousness, spirituality and awareness, and how that basically eventually led you to finding the path on pranic healing.
Yeah, so absolutely. About 4 years ago, I was working in the field of automotive repair. I was working at a dealership, a Land Rover Jaguar dealership to be specific. Yeah, and I was doing I've always been doing my work on the side, like helping people out, neighbors, family. So that has always been my dream from a very early age, like around 14. I decided I want to, create my own business, you know, create a shop. At the time I was watching West Coast Customs, Pimp My Ride on MTV. And I just thought it was cool to see how a group of people can get together with all different, specialties, and come together and do like amazing work like that. So it's something I always like aspired to do. And so I'm in the field for about like 15 plus years, doing, working for someone, a dealership or a shop, working for myself or doing some stuff on the side and entrepreneurial things. It's just, I guess there was a part of me throughout my life that was never or didn't get to the point where I can go full out on my own. There was still some of that kind of sense of security or fear that I was trying to break. But I noticed over the years as I got older, the more and more I suppressed that idea of venturing out on my own, the more and more it kept coming up inside, and it would cause me anxiety. Like I'm not living out my purpose. I'm not doing what I really want to do. And it was just that layered on top so often that it got to the point where it was really screaming at me. And so I had a great job. I was earning well over six figures. That's not as common for an automotive technician to earn, high amounts like that in a regular shop setting. But I had to make a decision because, for one, yeah, I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do. I mean, I was, because I love the brand cars I was working on, and but I wasn't really living out my dream, my purpose, and so I made the decision that I would leave, and so I left and I had just bought a house that year too, so it was it's huge, and I have three kids, a wife. And so it was a really tough decision, but I knew something had to change because it was eating me up inside, and I didn't know what that was. I mean,
Mm.
there were days I was stressed out with like anxiety. I had to like go to sleep with a weighted blanket just so I can sleep comfortably. And at the time, I had signed up with the state to get prescribed medical cannabis, and I was coping with my anxieties that way because it was eating me up throughout the day. And then I'd come home and I'd find myself that stuff overflowing out of me, and I didn't like how I was around my family, and I couldn't control it. It was like I'd come home. they'd be all happy to see me, and then I'd just say a few words, and I just ruin the vibe of
Mm.
the household, because
Yeah.
I'm in my mess, and the mess is just like overflowing out. So at the time, I didn't realize what was going on, but I remember Googling, is this burnout? Am I experiencing burnout? Because I was working a lot. And I think I was just trying to keep myself occupied and busy so that I wasn't, thinking about, hey, I'm not doing the things I need to do to venture out on my own, like full time. And that's where my heart was at. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I left that dealership. And shortly after that, I found myself at this point. I guess it was the point where a lot of things started shifting for me. And that was where I was completely dissatisfied with my results that I was getting, dissatisfied with myself. I just hit like this point where I know I can do better, but I'm not doing better, and I don't know how to do better.
Mm.
And just cried out to the universe to help me, please guide me or show me what I need to do, because I don't want to be like this anymore. And the very next day, a Tony Robbins event appeared on my news feed, and I was like, okay, I know Tony Robbins, and it was a free event. It was just right around COVID, so they were transitioning from doing in-person events to going online, because they couldn't host events at that time because of people in large places, and so the timing for that was very interesting. But I signed up for the free event. I dabbled through it because I was just really busy with what I was doing at the time, but I still like watched the re-recordings, and it's like, this is really good stuff, and it was helping me understand things I didn't understand. And the opportunity came up to sign up for a paid event. It was Unleash the Power Within, the first virtual event, and that interested me a lot. And I asked the wife. I almost didn't do it. I was at the time, I think I had to always ask her for, because I didn't trust myself, or I don't know. I just needed
Right.
that second.
Gotta always ask the wife, right?
Yeah. It's like, hey, do you think this is a good decision, or whatnot? But she said if I felt that, it was like I wanted to do it, I should go do it. And I'm thankful that, she said that, and thankful I didn't get in my head and say, I'm not going to do this. It's $450. I never spent that kind of money on myself before. And, but I did it. And I'm so grateful that I did it, because just being immersed with different people and different mindsets, and operating at different levels of awareness, is just like I was being absorbed, and I just got immersed in that. And it was just like living in a completely different world for those 3 days that I was like in that event. And I discovered Master Code through that event. So prior to that, I never even knew about pranic healing. I didn't know about spirituality or energy, like at all. And so that it taught me a lot, because I began following him for about a year and a half, like solidly. And I was doing Twin Hearts meditation. That's how I started out with. Well, let me go back to the event. When I found out about Master Co, he did a demonstration on how to feeling energy, and I felt it through the Zoom, and that's what sparked my curiosity. I said, "What is this?" Like, I'm curious to know more. And I just remember doing Twin Hearts meditation for the first time, and feeling a sense of calmness and a quieter mind than going into it.
Mhm.
So that was really interesting. And then that's why I followed him for about a
Mhm.
year and a half on Facebook. I was tuning into his Anchor the Lights, and I've noticed these little shifts, like almost right away when I was doing these meditations. Like I'd be in traffic, and somebody would, I don't know, maybe cut up in front of me, and normally I would like react to that, but instead I was observing, and I was like, I'm not going to put myself in that state of mind, and like argue back, or do, like not let that affect me. So I was more in a responsive state than a reactive state than I was usually. And I'm like, the only thing I'm doing differently is these meditations, so I'm going to keep doing them, and seeing where this goes, like where this is leading me. Because I was very like naive at that time, and I was just really trying to stick to whatever I felt would lead me to where I wanted to go, and that was just a more happier life, and so that I can be better, and do better.
Mm.
But and then a year and a half later, I wanted to get back into investing in my personal development because so much has shifted just with tuning into Master Co and his lectures and sharing the teachings of him and his teacher, and is beautiful because like listening to the stories, I learned so much and I gained so much, and I was applying those teachings into my life, and I was noticing these shifts. Um, and it was just fantastic. And I got involved. I found another teacher, Bob Proctor, and this was the gentleman I really wanted to learn from, and so I got involved with his company so that I can be close with the people and really learn what they're teaching, because like they were talking about laws of the universe, the mind, the subconscious mind, and all
Mm,
foreign to me. And I'm like I had just like I found this new love for personal development because it's just something that was missing from my life, but like for so long, and I'm glad I found it. Um,
mm,
and to
that's
understand,
incredible.
yeah. And then he
Yeah.
he mentioned Bob Proctor was talking about how we're a massive energy, and then I'm okay. This guy has been studying this specific material about the self for like 60 plus years, so he's had like tons and tons of experience studying. So I wanted to learn more on that energy aspect. So then I enrolled like a week later, or no, it was a month later after being involved with Bob Proctor. I went and I signed up for my first basic level one pranic healing class. So simultaneously, like learning the two, like it really helped me like understand the energy side of it and the mind side of it. And I really like put the
Sure.
two together, and it really like sped up a lot of, I guess, inner transformation, just by, yeah, I just, I don't know. I don't think I think I learn a little bit differently from others. I don't know how to explain that, but I have to like
Yeah.
really, when something's presented to me, I need to like read it over a couple times or go over it a couple more times or really understand it and dissect it. Like I just really want to know every ins and out of it. And I believe pranic healing and everything that is put together there, and what I'm studying outside of there is it's just been phenomenal as far as what I've experienced change in my life with
Yeah.
not like my family, my relationships, my finances, my business is thriving, my like just so much has changed since then.
Yeah. That's amazing, Josue. And I just wanted to kind of, you know, take this moment to really acknowledge the transformation you mentioned, right? And I think so many people are going through or will go through what you've, faced, right? Which is that feeling of purpose, right, and passion. And I remember you saying the more you suppressed it, the stronger it kind of rebounded back, right? And as we know in energy, right, energy healing, pranic healing, right, you never want to suppress something that needs to come out, right? Because it only, even in medicine, right, when you take a steroid and suppress inflammation, you can only do it for a certain amount of time before that inflammation comes back even stronger, right? Because the body's intelligent, the mind is intelligent, and it really sounded like your soul was calling out to you for something bigger. And you said it yourself. You cried out to the universe and like, please show me a way, show me a path, some guidance. And it really felt like you were just kind of at wit's end, right? You're just, it was probably, I think for a lot of people, and even for me, just like it feels like the hardest situation in the world when you can't, when you know you can do better, like you said, when
Yeah,
you can do it and you know you have the ability to do it, you don't have like the path or avenue, and sometimes it's just taking on that risk. And
yeah,
for you, I mean, that's incredible. You have three kids, a wife, and that sounded like a huge risk. And also, like you said, you bought a house recently too, and to make this big business jump, right, to starting your own business. And now fast forward, a few years later, you're thriving, you're on all fronts. I think this really speaks to the fact of, the title of this podcast, which is, you know when you live your authentic life, it's things just get better. because it's who you are as a person, right? And like you said, when you combine the mind aspect with the energy aspect, right? As we know, our attention goes, energy flows. And
Yeah.
when you can channel that attention more authentically to your passion and purpose, which is what it sounds like, that's amazing. With automobile services, I'm a big fan of cars. I know nothing about repairing them. So it's really cool because I think that your story resonates to so many other people out there. And even for me, that's how we got connected, right? When I put out a story, basically I felt lost, right? And I was like, I'm like calling out to the universe, like, hey, show me my path, right? I'm
Yeah.
I'm tired of having this feeling rebound in me too. And yeah, so here we are. And I really wanted to kind of take this next half of the podcast, Josue, to kind of build on this. I know you spoke about like how important the mind is, right? With having awareness and self development, and I see all the books in the background for you. So it sounds like even though you take a little bit more time to go over things, I think it goes to show like you're really a student of the teachings. So how can people find that awareness, figure out their passion, their purpose, right? Because I feel like a lot of people like us might be in a more situation of gratitude because we know what we want to do. We know our purpose, right? Sometimes we just don't know how to like launch it. But how do people utilize consciousness to figure out what their passion is and also to go for it? Because I think that's the hardest part: having awareness and then taking the action to actually make it happen.
Yes. Yeah, I think where it should, or where it could, a good start would be, is identifying what you really want, like, and like a goal that not just any kind of goal, but a goal that'll cause you to stretch, like a goal that you don't even know how to achieve, but it's something that you want. And that might kind of be difficult at first if you don't have a written goal or you don't know a goal, because I mean, I didn't have a goal either until, I met my mentors and they started talking about goals. And so it's something I had to learn too. I just wasn't aware of it. Like when they asked me, he's like, do you have a goal? No, I don't. I think I do, but it's taking what you really want inside and finding out what that is. And if one doesn't really know, I've come up with, or I've found ways that you can identify what you really want. Some people say, I don't know what I want, but you can look at all the things you don't want or you don't like. And it's just the opposite of that is what you actually want. Maybe you want, more freedom, more time to, vacation, or maybe you want to start a company. But then there has to be like a deeper, like, like feeling with it too. It's got to have purpose behind it and all that to really get you going. And I think that's what will draw in some of that awareness, because now you know what you want to go after, and your heart is like, you're activated. You want to start moving towards that. And I think if you just make a decision that you're gonna go searching, or you're gonna read some books, do some research, start moving in the direction just a little bit, that
Mhm.
what you need will start to come to you. You will attract it, as long as you stay on that that thought frequency of that's what you want. But I think it's what kicks us off is when we start doubting ourselves, that we can't do it, or we're not good enough. And sometimes those things that are going on in the mind didn't even come from us. It just, it
Mm.
past programming, could have been from someone else. But we think it's ours. And that's why studying ourselves is so important, I think, because these are all things I didn't even know about. I didn't know about, like, how the subconscious mind can retain information, like habits that serve us and habits that don't serve us, because that automatic mechanism in our mind that helps us get up in the morning and do all our routines, like, automatically can serve us in those ways. But the ways that it doesn't serve us is, like, if we have a lack mindset, or like, there's lack and limitation, like, in the world. And
Poverty
therefore,
consciousness.
yeah, poverty
Uh,
consciousness, we're going to be constantly thinking that. Therefore, we're going to be attracting more of that into our experience. And it's very important to actually fix our mind on what we want, like similar to what you said, where energy goes, or where our focus goes, energy goes. And so essentially, yeah, that it's and it's just a process of like reminding yourself that, but it's all a journey. And I think, yeah, once somebody identifies their want, like really spend some time, like maybe journaling and what do I want, just maybe even write out all your wants out and then pick like the top ones out of that whole list.
Mm.
I think that's can I think, I mean, well, that's what started it for me, because I knew what I wanted, but I didn't really have it at my forefront of my mind. And
Mm.
now it's like, well, so I'm transitioning from love for cars to my love for personal development. So like
Mm.
I'm in the middle right now of a shift where I want to turn that to be my hobby, my part time, that I can set up automatically and move from operator to owner, and then focus on you know sharing the teachings of pranic healing and the mind, because that's what lights me up more now, because it's done so much for me that I
Mm.
know there's probably somebody out there searching just like I was, and that information I can connect them to it, and I don't
Yeah.
know,
That's
that just
amazing.
to
Yeah.
me.
And I think what I hear you're saying about that is it's almost like our passion, that initial first passion or purpose, our dream might not be the end all be all, right? It may be just a stepping stone for us to find it and realize an even greater passion. And for you, it was, your mobile automobile at home services. And now you're filling an even bigger bucket, right, of yourself, being even more authentic and focusing on, personal development, energy healing, the mind and the subconscious. So I think that's really incredible because I want to emphasize that, because a lot of people like me get stuck onto one thing and it's like, okay, this is my one dream, and I must get it done, right? This is the end all be all. This is the only thing I see I'm doing in my life. And you speak of Bob Proctor, and I think Master Co says this too. There's another law in the universe called the law of change, right? Everything
Hmm.
is subject to change, and even though you think you want something, you write it down on your journal that it might not be there on top, a few years later. So that's incredible, and it sounds like you're making that transition now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
awesome. I think we spoke on the awareness piece, Josue, on terms of like, being very clear about what you want, right? Making a list, because I think what you said was also very important, where sometimes for people that don't know what they want, right? Maybe just write down what you don't want, right? And again, I think for us, we have an idea, a starting point of like, okay, this is our North Star. But some people, they don't even see where their North Star is. And it sounds like
Yeah.
write down things that you don't see yourself doing. And that kind of reminds me of a quote from Spiritual Teacher, right? Where the student asked, like, oh, what did you learn when you got enlightened, right? And he said, I gained nothing, but I lost anger, I lost worry, I lost sadness, I lost jealousy, I lost all of those things. And then underneath all of that, all underneath all of those layers, I found myself, right? And I
Mhm.
found my love, I found my passion, I found my calling. So I feel like
Yeah.
that's the other way into it, right? If you
Yeah.
don't know exactly what you want, maybe, you know, write down the things that you don't want that makes you angry or jealous or sad, and that's the other way of looking at it. So I just, when you said that, that's the point that I got connected to. And kind of moving on that, I wanted to really help people in this podcast to make practicable steps for their life once they've identified that. Because for you, so you made a huge shift. That is no easy feat to jump right into your own business after being in a what sounds like a very cushy, but you worked very hard, six-figure job, right? So what did you do in terms of actionable steps that made you make that leap? Because a lot of people can write all the things down in the world, can, I want to manifest this, I want to materialize this, right? Universe, please, with this affirmation, please bring me this. But what actions did you take that really kind of drove it home for you? Because I think that's honestly the most important part.
Yeah, that drove me to leave there to venture on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I had I stepped into who I wanted to be while I was there. I wanted to work on my own, and the processes and how I was handling my business or my work. I called it my business because as an automotive technician in a service department, we're almost like contracted, but we're employed. So we get paid per the job, not paid for standing around and hourly. We don't get paid that way. We get paid for doing the work. And so I had my area, I had two lifts when most people only had one. Um, so I was doing double the work. I had cars like on a lift. I was checking one out, pulling it out, pulling another one. Like I was running a business out of my job, I guess you can say. And so I was already doing the work, but I just I was collecting only a small portion of it, of the earnings. It wasn't actually my business, but I was the one writing up what the car needed, getting all the parts it needed, putting it on the car, fixing it, and delivering it back to the client. The only thing I wasn't doing was talking to the clients, getting the clients in, and collecting money and that stuff. But um, I felt like I had enough, like I did enough that I can do this on my own. I'll learn the other things as I go. That was my mindset way of thinking though. But yeah, essentially I think if you're doing so good at your job that you think, and maybe you want to go do it on your own, and I mean, I guess building yourself up in your job is a good, um, way to maybe step out. Or even before then, I was listening to Jim Rohn, and he's like, when you're not working those extra hours, you could be working on, you know, your next move, like, or your, if you're going to create a business and you still have a job, you can, you know, use the time that you're not working on that job to create that and move into that. So I don't know if that really answered the question.
Yeah, I think that that helps because I think what I see you say is it's almost as if you saw the inklings of running your own business within working at your day job, and I think that's a blessing, right? It's almost like, oh wait, it's right in front of me. I see the whole process. It's just I don't see the customers. I'm not meeting them face to face, having this relationship, but you saw that you're only getting paid a quarter of what you would have gotten paid if you had your own business. So
Yeah.
that I think that's one of almost one of the best ways to do it, right? It's just to see it in front of you, like, okay, this transition is not big of a jump as I would have thought. So, and then I'm sure afterwards you kind of did all the business filings, created your own company, and then it seems like you got your own company vehicle and you got all the equipment, and then yeah, you were just out there and doing it, right?
Yep. And what I was primarily, because I wasn't sure of what I should do, I was seeking out other individuals who are already doing it and learning from them. And I just kept doing that. And they're all around us, I mean, you can find them online. Uh, and I mean, I knew people that, had businesses, and I would just watch what they do and take what serves me, and then discard the rest, and then just adapt, add
Mm.
some of the things I like about what they do into mine. And that's also essentially what I've been doing my whole career, because I left this part out, but you guys should probably know this about me, is that I lost count after 17 different shops that I've worked for. And it's because I set a standard for well, I've always had this standard for myself from even before I entered the work field as a teenager, that like if I wasn't happy or if somebody didn't treat me right, I wouldn't stick around. I respect myself enough to not be talked down to. And if I
Mm.
wasn't completely happy, I would go find another place to work. And the way I viewed it was like, I'm going to be happier in my next place. I'm going to earn more money, and I'll be happier. Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
most
yeah,
important.
it's a win-win. Yeah.
And that's what I did my whole life. I gave every place about a year tops. But if things weren't going well, I could just move on. Because and it's funny because I got a lot of kickback when I would share that with my close acquaintances, and it wouldn't be exactly what I was hoping to hear from them. I thought, and that kind of, I think, going back to authenticity, I was being very authentic when I was younger, and
Hmm.
a lot of that got, different points of views thrown my way, and it made me feel less of myself for expressing myself, because I was
Mm.
hoping to like get, good job, or like, I was seeking, what's that word, like approval, or no, like, I don't know, just this acknowledgement that I'm doing something right, because from an
Mm.
early age I had instilled in me that I wasn't smart, I couldn't sit still, I couldn't pay attention, and this was first grade. And so that became part of my way of thinking, that something was mentally not all there with me. And so
Mm.
I think my whole life I was just trying to prove to myself that that's not true, but it was there. It was still kind of there, because they made me, or school made me feel that way. And maybe, some of the things I heard said to me, like maybe if somebody said, "Hey, can you grab that?" And then I wasn't clear on exactly what to grab. And then I took longer than it should have taken to grab whatever for that person. I'd get called like, "Are you stupid?" And that stuff at an early age can stick to a
Mm.
child, because I know it did with me. Up until I was 30, I still believed that some parts of me was stupid. And it was until like I got involved with pranic healing, and I actually had some pranic healers help me, that we pulled that out of me, that it was just a label and I didn't even see it. Like I was unaware that there was this label, like sticky note on my head saying I was stupid all my life, and all I had to do was peel it off. And
Mm.
that right there was like a huge shift in itself. She shared with me, it was my the healer that was working with me, said we can shrink anything down to like like grain of rice, and it may be big in our mind like a dinosaur, but we have that ability to do that. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Mm.
And that, yeah, I just went down a different way there, to share some stuff, but
No, I think this is great, Josue, because this was the thing that I was going to actually sort of kind of close off with is being that authentic self, right?
mhm,
I think comes a lot from childhood conditioning, our environment, right? Our family expectations. And I hear you. I think what you were talking about more was like that people pleasing mindset of like, oh yeah, I want approval from certain people, so let me do it this way so I can look better, uh, or think better about myself, because I did this. But it sounded like, even though those comments were very hurtful, in your childhood, people calling you or labeling you in different ways. What I really admire, Josue, is your tenacity, your diligence of like, okay, this is not me. I know this is not me, and I'm gonna prove you all wrong by and proving it to myself. And I think that's the most important part, because a lot of people struggle with childhood traumas, or PTSD from all different types of situations, and that becomes their identity. Like that trauma is part of them. And like you said, that trauma energetically might be just like a little rice grain, but when it goes into our mind, it blows up as big as a dinosaur, right? And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, is that most of the time it's not as big of a deal as it really is. And it's easier to heal and let go than we think. But as we know in pranic healing, you have to replace it with something, right? You can't just remove some space and expect something to magically fall in. And
yeah,
and I think that's what I appreciate about you, is your self-confidence, right? To move from 17 different shops and, hey, like if you don't treat me well, I'm out of here, right? Because you have such a high value for your time, and it sounds like you do great work, right? Most people handle one lift, you're handling two, right? You're doubling the output. And I think it's really important for people, when it comes to the awareness of like being your authentic self, is
yeah,
to understand the value of what it means to be your authentic self, because there's only one of you out of 8 billion people. So what is your true value to this world, right? And when you think of it that way, and when I again hear your story, Josue, it's just so inspiring to me, because I am literally trying to do the things that you're doing, but I'm like super afraid of it, right? Just to move on from a situation, and I think a lot of people too, because we get so stuck, ingrained, and rooted in a certain way of thinking. Really amazing podcast, Josue, and thank you so much. I've learned a lot from your experiences, and I can only see even bigger and greater things coming your way as you serve more people on this, next path of yours. As a tradition with the podcast, I always like to ask every guest, if a stranger walked up to you, on the street and they were asking, hey, I heard you from this podcast and I'm struggling. I need help finding myself. I need help in figuring out who is this genuine person underneath this bag of meat and flesh. What would you tell them in order to help them get moving and then find that authentic self that we were talking about for this episode?
What would I tell them? Yeah, well, if it was like a conversation, like 1-to-1, face to face, I mean, I'd really just want to get to know more about them and see where they're coming from with all that. See what they got going on in their life, what their goals are, what they're looking to achieve out of life. And if they don't know, I mean, I can help kind of ask them certain questions that'll get them thinking. And
Mm,
I think we can. Yeah, I don't think anyone's too far can be too far lost. I think feeling lost is actually, to me, was a good thing, because that means there's something to be
mm,
found, and you probably heard that, but that's truly what I felt. It's like, just to surround yourself with people that are going to lift you up and encourage you, and listen to you, rather than just like, yeah, tell you what to do. um
right. Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's great. I like that answer because I think what I expect usually from asking these questions, like, oh, you have to take this action or take this action. But I think what I'm hearing you say is it's really a journey of exploration. Of course, you can say, take this action, don't be afraid, aim this way and shoot for it. But sort of you have to understand the awareness part too, right? You have to understand where you're coming from, how you got to this point, and then where you want to go. Because I think a lot of people, again, have expectations of where they want to go based on, again, those limiting belief systems, which might not be the end all be all. So, and as you say that, I kind of see what you would go through for a particular client if they were asking you, right, that same question too. And that is a process, and I don't think it can be answered as simply in a couple sentences. But yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Josue, for this amazing conversation. Again, I learned so much, and even for myself, being on the spiritual path, I appreciate the experiences and almost like the testimonial to about just believing yourself and going out there and doing it and thriving on that. And I think for a lot of people is that fear of believing and trusting that, okay, I think this is me and I think this is what I want and I'm not sure if I want to do it. And just talking to you, just like, okay, Josue is the perfect example. Just listen to this podcast and it'll just kind of give you like in moving forward. So appreciate that. And I'll leave Josue's links down below if anyone wants to contact him or know more about his business. Yeah, that's all for today's podcast. Thank you, everyone. Atma Namaste. We hope you enjoyed listening. If you did, please consider supporting the podcast by being a subscriber. It helps me on the podcast and have great guests like Josue come on, and we can talk about amazing topics. All right, everyone, take care, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.